Hey there, I'm Sadaf Bainan, and this is Podjunction Podcast, the show where business leaders share how they use podcasting to grow, connect, and build their brands. We're back in my short solo series, the Podcast Rethink, where I've been pressing pause on the interviews to explore some of the biggest myths in podcasting. So far, we've talked about why chasing downloads can hold your business back, how too many interviews can weaken your brand, and why starting solo might actually be the smartest move you can make. Today, we're diving into something really practical and asking the question, if downloads don't define success, then what does? There's no doubt about it, podcast metrics have changed. In 2025, it's no longer about how many people you reach, it's about how long they stay. According to the podcast host and Descript, the median show gets around 420 downloads per episode. But the real power lies in how long people listen. Completion rates of 60% or higher are now the gold standard. So it's retention, not reach, that really tells you if your podcast is working. Like me, you've probably had that moment where you open your analytics dashboard and your heart does a little jump when the graph goes up. But then we come crashing back down when we realize that the spike or the surge doesn't mean a whole lot. Downloads, like followers, they look like progress. But if those numbers aren't moving your business forward, then the question is, do they even really matter? Vanity metrics are everywhere. Downloads, likes, impressions, they all look great in a screenshot, but they rarely tell the full story. You could have 10,000 downloads and not a single client, or 200 downloads and a full inbox of people who actually want to work with you. Gary Arndt, who hosts Everything Everywhere Daily, said something insightful. The right 200 downloads beat 2,000 every time. Those right 200 that he is referring to are your people, the ones who listen deeply, take action, and actually trust you. And in my books, that's the real win. A listen isn't success anymore. Success is when someone stays to the end and then comes back next week and the next week and the week after that, because that is what builds real connection and brand equity. The problem is vanity metrics can take us off course. We start making decisions that look strategic, but certainly aren't. We end up trying to go broader instead of deeper and focusing on getting noticed instead of being known. And somewhere along the way, we lose sight of why we even started. So the question isn't how many people listened. It's what did this episode actually do for my business? When you start asking that question, things begin to get reframed as they should. The shows that actually drive growth focus on three things: relationships, authority, and engagement. I want to unpack those with you. So, number one, relationships, which is the foundation of trust. Podcasting is one of the best networking tools you'll ever have. I think we can all agree on that. Kevin Bupp, host of Real Estate Investing for Cashflow, told me, if you want your podcast to build your business, treat every episode as a networking opportunity. And then he went on to say, some of my best clients started as guests on the show. And he's absolutely right, because every conversation is a door, sometimes to a client, sometimes to a collaboration, and sometimes to a friendship that changes how you think. And when you treat interviews as relationships, not as transactions, your podcast quietly becomes your best relationship builder. And you'll see this play out as you build goodwill, as you see guests become advocates, and as you find new introductions happening naturally. It's the kind of ROI you don't always see on a dashboard, but you can feel it. That momentum grows one conversation at a time. And if you want to measure that, jot down the people who've entered your world because of your podcast, guests, partners, even listeners who've reached out, and you'll start to see patterns that tell a much deeper story than any graph ever could. Second, authority. Authority happens when people trust you before you even speak. And your podcast hands you that opportunity on a silver platter as often as you release episodes. The hosts who build real authority aren't necessarily the loudest or flashiest, but they are definitely the most consistent. They keep showing up and they build a library of conversations and ideas that quietly say, I know my stuff. Michelle Thames, another past guest, is a great example. Her solo episodes on mindset and business directly led to new consulting opportunities. And that's proof that showing up consistently builds both trust and business. That's what authority really does. It opens doors you don't even see coming, and suddenly you're being invited to panels, to collaborate, or to speak at events. And all of that comes from one thing: showing up with something meaningful to say. Authority brings leads, partnerships, and sales, but it always starts with showing up before anyone's watching. And finally, engagement. Not likes, not comments, but real engagement. The kind where someone gives you 30 minutes of their time and actually sticks with you, and you begin to see that depth beats reach every single time. Let's be honest, we can't remember the last 10 posts we liked on social media, but we remember the podcast episodes that made us think. We remember that host who made us feel understood. And that's the power of podcasting. It's intimate. People let you into their day, their commute, and their quiet moments. That's a whole level of trust that you simply cannot buy. Engagement shows up in small ways. Someone mentioning an episode in a meeting, or referencing your story in a conversation, or saying, hey, I was thinking about what you said last week. That's the stuff that matters. And the industry agrees. The real benchmark is retention. If 60% or more of your listeners stay through to the end, you're doing better than most. And that's your proof of impact. And it's got to be said, even if you're running a niche show with just a few hundred listeners, remember that what matters isn't how many people listen, it's who listens and what they do afterward. And that's where you'll find the real ROI happens. The thing about these 3 KPIs, relationships, authority, and engagement, is that they take time. You won't see the results after one episode. They build slowly, quietly, over months of consistency. But that's also what makes them so powerful. Every meaningful conversation you have will expand your network. Every consistent episode adds to your credibility. And every minute someone spends listening to you deepens their trust in you. Podcast ROI doesn't work in spikes or download surges, but in steady compounding growth. Growth that is rooted in relationships, in authority, and genuine impact. This shift from chasing vanity numbers to tracking real business outcomes is exactly what the smartest brands and thought leaders are doing right now. So if you're already thinking this way, you're well ahead of the curve, and you'll soon be experiencing success in those meaningful conversations. Here's your challenge for the week. Before you check your analytics again, grab a notebook or even your phone and write down 3 real wins your podcast created this month. 1 relationship that started because of your show, 1 opportunity that came your way, and 1 moment of feedback that reminded you why you're doing this in the first place. And you'll find that that's your real ROI. The best results don't show up on a graph. They show up in the growth of your business and the strength of your connections. Thanks for listening to PodJunction Podcast. If this episode gave you a new way to think about ROI or just helped you breathe a little easier about your numbers, I'd love to hear from you. You can message me on LinkedIn or reach out through the PodJunction website. Next time, we'll wrap up the Podcast Rethink series by looking at why so much podcast business advice misses the point and what actually works instead. Thanks again for listening, and bye for now.